So as of Friday, Wildcard announced in their latest community crunch that now the centre has been delayed, and this is just awful news for the franchise of Ark. Well, it's not really a franchise, is it? But just Ark in general, as the centre and Scorched Earth were supposed to be the sort of saviours. This is going to decide what ASA's future was going to be like, and it just simply doesn't really seem very viable anymore because of this. And yes, Scorched Earth is still coming out when it's supposed to, at least for the time being. Who knows, it might even be delayed further than that. There is no trust between the community and the devs anymore, and apparently the centre was being worked on by a sort of partner company. I can't remember what partner company people have been stating could have done this, but a partner company of Wildcard have been doing this, and apparently they didn't know any of the progress that they had made until just now, and then a week before it was supposed to release, they were just pulled the pin and they were just like, right, no, sorry, it is not going to release. And now it sounds like it's going to release after Scorched Earth, and as an Ark player, it is really, really sad and really, really disappointing to see this happen to the game, because I had such high hopes for ASA when I saw that launch trailer, and then as soon as I started playing the game, I realised what a mess it was, and I thought, well, maybe it's just going to get updated and it can come back from this, and it really hasn't. And I'm sorry to say this, and it's very hard to say, but it is not really improved as much as it should have. And people saying, well, after 6 months, you know, it's going to be so much better. It's been 3 months already, kind of almost 4 now, and it's really not in a state where it should be. Wildcard did state that there is something that they can offer you. Instead, they're just going to put the Gigantoraptor on the island, but the island is not what we want, and we don't want that thing to be on that map. It's not going to make that viable. We still want it on the centre, and they've just said we've made a decision to postpone the centre as it's not on track with the launch level at the quality that we require. Our dedicated partners who have been working on the centre while we focus on Scorched Earth. So their dedicated partners have focused on the centre and they didn't know the progress on it, but they said it'll be well worth it for the wait. And then they've also stated that there is plenty of fresh Ark content on the way. And when I look at this, I'm like, well, what actually is that fresh Ark content? You have shown us none of the fresh Ark content, and the content that has been promised has now been further delayed, and now we're not going to have access to it until much later on. And we don't even know if Scorched Earth is even going to release in a good state, considering what the state the island released in, and we don't even know if that's going to be delayed as well, because if that is delayed too on top of this, it is really not going to be great for the Ark community whatsoever. There is going to be complete outrage, and there already is with the centre being delayed. Fine, maybe if they delayed it for a week or two, things like that happen, mistakes happen, and Wildcard is known for setting maybe unrealistic launch dates on things, and it might also be quite a lot of influence from Snail Games as well to get them to release those games out early. But still, really, you shouldn't be pulling the pin that close to release, and you should be keeping an eye on the progress of things. You can't just whack a release date on something and have no idea on how far it's coming. Surely you have connections with that dev team saying, hey, are you actually able to release it at this date? And they could have done that weeks and weeks before, and they probably would have been like, sorry, no, it's not in a good enough state. And then a couple weeks ago they could have said, well, it's going to be delayed, and, you know, at least try and get out before Scorched Earth. But still, I know it's something it's hard. It's very hard to do game developing, but still, you can't give loads of promise to people and say, oh yeah, you've got loads of new Ark content, you've got all of this, and then just don't deliver on it. It just simply doesn't work like that. You have to deliver on your promises, especially when you're in a state like this, and with the state where Wildcard is right now, where it's received a lot of hate over the last 12 months, and the state of Ark has really not been great, with other games like Power World and even Valheim and things like that releasing, and just so many players are going to be on games like that now. They're just switching over from Ark. Even Rust is in a much better state than Ark at the moment. Obviously, I know they're very different survival games, but there's just so many great options out there. There's also like Sons of the Forest and things like that. I know maybe not complete survival games, but still quite a lot of players are just converting. And still, if you look at the player base on ASA, it just keeps dropping and dropping and dropping, and it's barely keeping over 10,000 active players at a time anymore. And if you look over the last 3 months, that graph is just going down and going down. It's seemingly just going to keep going down and keep going down until no one is even playing this game anymore. And it's really, really sad to see this game in such a state, but it is just the way that ASA seems to be going, and I really don't want it to be like this. This was supposed to be the new reimagined even Ark experience, which was supposed to be free of bugs and run reasonably well on today's hardware, and it does none of those things. Well, maybe it sort of does reimagine the Ark experience, but it is reimagined in a way that it is full of bugs and full of performance issues, and the community really does seem to care about this game and they want it to do well. But it's so sad when we put all this effort into the game. Like, the modding community is absolutely fantastic, but we put all this effort into the game and we get nothing back from the developers or just the game itself. It doesn't give us anything back. They've been constantly saying, yeah, we've got loads of new Ark content to us, and getting our hopes up because they know the community has not been in the best of state with Ark, but they're just not delivering it. It is better to just say, right, we don't really have anything, and then spend some time, develop some stuff and release stuff, instead of saying, oh yeah, we've got all of this Ark content, and then they just don't show any of us to it, and they don't show like anything to us about the content that they've got, and they don't release any of that content, and any content that they have announced and that they say they're working on, they're just going to delay further, and it really does not suit well for the players. It makes you have a very negative perspective of the game. You just don't really have a very nice, kind relationship with the game or the developers or things like that. And you know, maybe I don't really think it's too much of Wildcard's fault, but it is a little bit on their hands. We can't just keep leaning everything on Snail Games and Nitrado and things like that, although the things that they have done have been absolutely disgraceful. There is still a lot that Wildcard could do to do better, and obviously they should have probably just postponed the release of ASA and then had just more content out like that, and it would have been so much better of an experience. But sadly, that simply wasn't possible because of Snail Games. But either way, you need to take this opportunity, Wildcard, and make it a better one. Try and get the center out as soon as possible, and really try and make this game a game which Ark players will actually enjoy. So ASA has been out since October now, and I recently made a video just basically saying, well, the center has been delayed, ASA is probably done for, and this really is not a good step for the game in itself. But I have a few notes to add on that video and just say, in my opinion, what is next for ASA. And as always, I need to put as a disclaimer, feel free to agree with me in the comments below. You might not think this whatsoever, and you might be in love with this game and really enjoying it, and that is very good for you, and I encourage you to keep playing the game and enjoying it as much as you want. But for people like me, I have a slightly different perspective. Now, talking about just the general center delay, essentially a week before the center was released, they said that it was going to be delayed, and the delay wasn't really the problem. Wildcard is very well known for delaying maps. Was it something that we expected? Not so much, considering the state that ASA was in, which I'll get to in a moment. But still, you know, a couple of weeks delay, that's fine. But considering that they did it in the last week, really seems like they don't care about their community in that way, and that we don't matter as much. And surely there must have been some evidence of progress of maps at the time. It can't just be that they just got the information. Then it simply doesn't sound very believable. And if we had the knowledge a few weeks before, then it would have been so much nicer and so much more well appreciated around it, as loads of content creators and just general players, more so content creators, actually in this case just content creators, have spent a lot of time planning things to do on the centre. For example, the Monarchy series, there's going to be something on the centre. They spent ages planning, and I know loads of other YouTubers out there have been planning loads for the centre out on ASA, and it's a new step for their content, but that is simply just not going to be here, and probably not until even after Scorched Earth releases. And Wildcard did say they would compensate by at the day that I'm recording this, the 28th, they're going to release the Gigantoraptor on the island. Personally, I don't think that is the right step, but I guess, yay, we've got a little bit more content now in ASA. And I heard some people saying down below, well, why don't you just download some of the modded maps? Svartalfheim is very easily available and accessible, so why don't you just play on that instead? And although that is a good map, it doesn't really offer the content that a new story map gives, as that really does progress the game on forwards. And now what it seems like people are doing is they're just going back to ASC because they just like it runs better, although maybe it doesn't look better, that obviously that performance is better and there's a lot more content in the game, and it simply is not worth doing ASA until more content is available and until all those bugs and just general performance issues are fixed and ironed out, which I definitely do agree with to some extent. But I know a lot of people are really enjoying just ASA in general, especially some console players on the Xbox Series X and PS5. You seem to have got the better end of the deal here, with some pretty decent performance and some quite nice looking graphics and an all-round pretty good experience. The same can't be said for Xbox S players and also just the PC community in general. Unless you've got a 4090 rig out there, you're really going to struggle running this game, and I did as well with my 3090 rig, but now I have put an FSR3 frame generation mod on, which does enable it to get some more performance, and it now does reach 60 FPS at 1440p with medium to high settings. If only that was just an option in the game already, it would make things so much easier, and also GTX cards and all those things could use it as well, as it does seem like new games are now just becoming more and more intensive, and the hardware and the general cost of hardware, people just can't afford the hardware to keep up with everything. But now I do want to talk about the state of ASA and kind of my opinions of it, and then what I think it is from the future, because there's no point just saying what has happened again really to too much extent onwards. That has already happened, it is not going to be undone. But now the state of ASA when it was released was pretty terrible. Firstly, you couldn't even download that game for a good 10 or so hours when it first released, as there was some bug with the Steam page, and it was also announced literally pretty much then on release day that consoles would not be able to play the game, which was just such a big bummer to so many players. And it's kind of, actually when I think about it, no real shock that Wildcard have done the same thing with the centre, just pulling out right at the last second. And the game has been littered with bugs and glitches which haven't really been present since the very, very early stages of ASE's existence, and now they're all back, and it really is just not a great scenario to be in for obviously just all of the ARC people out there and just the general Wildcard team as well. It is not a great position to put yourself in to release a game in this state. Could have definitely done with a good 6 to 12 months extra on top of what has already been done, because it needed it really. And then you could have already had the Scorched Earth on release as well, and had the center release very, very early on, if not actually just already in the map. Already in the game, sorry, not in the map. What am I even talking about anymore? But now, looking towards the future of ARC, what do you actually think first, before I think of, you know, what I'm going to say? What do you think of the state of ASA, and do you think it's really going to last for that long? Do you think that it's going to continue to develop and will soon become a successful masterpiece, or will it just keep falling into a never-ending ditch and eventually just simply be dropped, especially considering that the modding partner has kind of not become a modding community anymore, or a modding company I should say, and is now just sort of a DLC company, and all of that prize money has pretty much been pulled away, and that was 350,000 worth, which really would have done some good in the content creating space, and I really do hope that it does get some good use with those content creators, but that never does tend to happen, does it, in the end of things? They'll just use that for their own business purposes. But either way, you know, I can't be too miffed about that. It's really maybe not the best decision on their part, especially considering what they've signed. I'm pretty sure it's some sort of contract that they've signed as well, or there's some contract gone wrong. Actually, no, sorry, different companies. Nitrado and Snail Games, they had a 3-year contract, and Nitrado has also pulled all support for Spanish versions of their content, and so now loads of Spanish art creators have been ditched from all of that, because it's probably just to deal with Nitrado expected a lot more money out of Snail Games in those 3 years, and now they're just scraping back as much money as possible. That does seem to be the way Arc is going right now. There is just so little money, and it's not in a great state, and I don't know what the future will be like. We'll see what happens when ASA comes out, but honestly, I'm not too hopeful. So the Gigantoraptor is finally here for ASA, on the wrong map, but still we do have this creature, and what a creature, and I have a lot to talk about in today's video, like my opinions on this creature, also how to tame one of these things too, and also what you should expect once you've tamed one, as this really is a very different and unique creature, which I know quite a lot of you people will be using into the future. And it really is one of those kind of Ranu Ganata tames, but it is really going to innovate the Arc space. And actually, I can't wait to see more of this creature, as I really do like it. And it's one of those creatures which I'm pretty confident did actually exist at one point in time, or there was a very similar equivalent creature to it, and it really is one with an immense amount of utility. So the first thing that I did when taming one of these things is I just built up a trap, and I would have actually done a 3x3. That's better than a 3x2, or I would have still done a 3x2, but built the ramps where it would be 3 along and then 2 wide, because the Gigantoraptor can jump quite a significant amount, and it did take quite a bit of effort to get into the trap. You're going to see that whole little process of me trapping it. It's really, the Dino AI does actually make quite a big difference when trapping creatures, and it did take quite a bit, and that definitely is something to take into account. But yes, I would have made it a bit longer, because then I could have very easily got it in a lot earlier on. And you know, there's loads of things which you can try and do, like stand on top of the ramps and really make it its only path to get up to the ramps to get you. That's what you kind of want to try to do, so it does actually go for you in the end. But it can definitely be really difficult getting around things, and it's not the best of ways to do it. And there you can see it just got caught on the edge. If I made it a little bit longer, then it would have actually got stuck in. But just before I actually finish trapping this thing, I want to just talk about one of the roles, which is, if you know the S Plus mod, there's something called the Nanny, and this is essentially that as well. That's one of the abilities it has, and it is really going to help with all things breeding. So for you breeders out there, this is definitely going to be an exciting creature. As you can see there, I finally got it trapped. You can also feed it eggs to distract it, but it is so much cheaper to trap it. Then go into the nest, and the baby will kind of jump up, and there's a sort of mini game you have to play, and you have to press whatever button it says doing whatever action it will do. It will jump, and then it will do the action. Then you'll have a timer to keep doing that action, and this process really does not take too long. At least it didn't on my settings, and obviously I was taming quite a low level here. I think it says only level 20 or something like that, but obviously your rates and everything like that really is going to depend on how these creatures do tame for you, because it could take ages or it might not take that long. Definitely wise to use a trap. As you see there, I have finally tamed this thing, and I called it Big Bird because I thought that was quite appropriate for this. And Looking at this thing, you can just do the normal baby things to raise it, and you can imprint it as you would, but luckily, like the Theory, its saddle was unlocked at level 69.
Nice.
Now, apart from that saddle level being just at the perfect level, once you have saddled this creature, you are going to see its immense amount of ability first. And actually, the first thing I did was pretty stupid, and I went for a Rex, realizing I really did not have that much health. But I guess I'll talk about this thing's gliding ability, where it essentially is the Terror Bird on literal steroids. You can glide so far with this creature, and with quite a lot of speed as well. It really does have a lot of elegance in its mobility, an extremely fast runner as well, and there you can see that gliding ability in action, and it really is a great one, and I would definitely use it in a lot of travel scenarios. It does end up being a very good travel mount. They also are able to detect wild babies as well. You'll see that ability later, as I do use it later on, and you know, that is particularly useful for ASA if maybe you've just killed a creature and you want to get that baby variant tamed. You can just track it and you know where that baby is going to be with no issues whatsoever. You don't have to go looking through all the bushes to get it. As well, they are, like I've said, extremely fast, and actually they're quite fast in the water as well. I didn't show this in the clip, but they are really great. They also can gather tons of raw meat, raw fish, and keratin with its primary attack, and they can gather berries, thatch, and wood too, which, you know, that is a nice extra additional ability for these things to have, which obviously is just going to make these things better. And also they do have another thing as well, but you can see that baby tracking action there, and you can just see it will show that symbol up on screen. Then obviously you can go near that target and it will show. But the thing that I was talking about is once every 24 hours, there's a 24-hour cooldown of it, of course, you can pluck a feather from the Gigantoraptor that improves the chance of babies being born with the highest parental stat. The feather will tell you which stat and what % chance to use the feather. Place the feather in a female dino's inventory. The feather will be consumed after the female lays an egg or begins the gestation process. And you know, you can just simply do that by, if I haven't done it already, you can hold E and then you can simply pluck out that feather. Sorry, I wasn't really looking at the main screen when I did that, but I must have done it somewhere. Either way, you do know how to do it anyway. Just whatever the use button is for you on your arc, and then obviously from that you hold it and then you can pluck the feather once every 24 hours. But before I did actually tame that one successfully, I did have quite a few fails along the way. And while I'm talking about this creature and just what I think about it and how I think it can be really useful, I guess you can watch my slight failed attempt. There's not all of it here, this is just a snapshot of it when I was building that first trap. I did a 2x2 in this one, but yeah, you can watch that while I just talk about what I think to do with this creature. Personally, I think it has a really nice taming method, very cool, very new, very inventive, and also it's good that this is a mod on ASA, as it is quite clear that Ark and just Wildcard in general do not want this creature to stay on the island, but they do want to actually move it over to the center when the center comes out, which is nice because it would have actually not been the best if it was a permanent creature on the island, and you're not going to see it over island servers unless obviously they do add the mod, whoever runs said server, and if that's you running the server, then obviously you can add the mod yourself. But it's good to see that they won't really be coming to just normal traditional official servers. You're going to have to wait for the center for that, but if you're playing single player, obviously you download the mods and then boom, like that, you can tame yourself some Gigantoraptors. And I guess it's nice, it's really cool. It has a wealth of abilities. It's going to be a great travel mount for me in the future. It also deals quite a lot of damage, although maybe not quite as much as I did expect. But you know, I've already really just tamed a level 20, so I haven't got the most amount of high level Gigantoraptors to really test out the damage of these things. But they're really good, really cool taming method, really nice abilities, and I'm looking forward to using them.